Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach Dawn Platt for an all-new episode.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am so glad that you have joined me today. I'm your host, Dawn Platt. We're back for another episode in and around the dementia journey. Today, we're going to talk about something that's very seasonal, and many of you throughout the United States and around the world are in your winter season. I wanted to address that because there's a lot of safety concerns in and around the weather, in and around cold seasons. But we're going to talk about cold weather, winter conditions, and wandering risk for individuals with dementia. Let's talk a little bit about some of the freezing temperatures that we're seeing across the United States and in other parts of the world. But harsh wind and chills, icy conditions are very common and seasonal throughout many regions during the winter. However, these particular hazards pose an increased risk for individuals living with Alzheimer's disease or other dementia-related illnesses. Those who have dementia are more prone to wandering, and our frequent behavior can be associated with this condition. So a person with dementia who wanders may quickly become disoriented, especially in the winter or in a snowy area. They will be unable to find their way back to safety. They may not remember who to call for help or even if they're going to ask for help. Freezing temperatures make these situations far more dangerous for our loved ones and individuals who have dementia. Family caregivers need to take some extra precaution, some proactive steps to reduce the risk of wandering and ensure that we as caregivers are better equipped to respond if this should happen. So here are some national statistics that I looked up for you. These are insights related to people with dementia who actually have wandered off, especially in cold weather conditions. And I want to talk about this because you may say, well, we have lived in cold weather our entire life. My loved one was born here, was raised here, and is used to these conditions. But there are a lot of factors that may contribute to wandering during changes in the weather, changes in lighting. And that's why I want to talk about this on the podcast today. So although wandering can be a very common behavior, not all individuals with dementia wander, but their chances of wandering, of course, are much greater than other diagnoses. Amongst individuals with dementia or Alzheimer's disease, according to the Alzheimer's Association, 60% of people living with dementia may wander at least once, and many of them will do so repeatedly. Once is more than enough. That is the reason that we want to cover this safety awareness today. Time is going to be critical when someone with dementia wanders and has wandered away from the mall, has wandered away from their home, has wandered away from the car. Studies indicate that if a person with dementia is not found within 24 hours, nearly half, at 46%, will suffer serious injury or even death. Cold temperatures, snow, ice, and wind chill significantly increase the risk of hypothermia or frostbite during winter months, which contributes to these statistics. Winter months, as we know, are particularly dangerous for individuals with cognitive impairments. According to the National Institute on Aging, older adults lose body heat faster than younger people due to age-related changes in the body. And those individuals with Alzheimer's disease or dementia may not recognize the cold weather dangers that they could be facing if they wander off into the snow or into icy conditions. Dressing appropriately during the winter season is going to be critical. They may not be aware to seek shelter, which will put them at even greater risk if they do happen to wander. Here's an interesting fact. A study from Canada's Alzheimer's Society found that 80% of people with dementia who go missing are found within 1.5 miles of where they disappeared. Keep that in mind if this happens to you. This highlights the importance of local, timely searches. However, wandering in freezing temperatures can lead to rapid hypothermia in less than 10 to 30 minutes. Obviously, that's going to depend on the exposure and the wind chill, but it's really good to know, especially when you are helping someone dress appropriately. Even if they're indoors, you want to make sure that they're bundled up, just in case they might tend to wander. And of course, if you go out with them, please be sure to have extra layers in case for some reason they would wander off. Let's talk a little bit about some of the programs that probably are the most common that we see here in the United States, and that's the Silver Alert program. This program is designed to locate missing persons with dementia or other cognitive impairments, and it's active in more than 30 states in the U.S. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children reports that hundreds of seniors with dementia are located each year due to this program, due to the public alert system, and many of them are rescued, are located after wandering during adverse weather conditions. Look into the Silver Alert program. Look into your local hospital, your local sheriff's department, police department, and see if there's a program in the area where you live. But become familiar with the Silver Alert program and how to activate that, what you would need to do to notify the police immediately to get assistance if you found yourself in this situation. Wandering poses a significant danger to anyone with dementia, especially in cold weather. We as family members and caregivers must remain vigilant and take several proactive measures to ensure that our loved ones and those that we care for with dementia are safe, particularly in the most severe weather. Another thought that I want to talk about: in the United States, we have daylight savings time, we have time changes and that sort of thing. But during the fall and winter months, we have decreased light available to us. Due to that and that alone, we do see an increase in confusion and what we call sundowning behaviors. That is a contributing factor to the possibility of wandering. Be sure that if you are not in a community assisted living or memory care who have routine and regular training by state regulation, and of course, most companies do require that for their staff, make sure you as the home caregiver really take this into thought as the seasons change. There is tracking technologies available, bracelets and charms and other tracking mechanisms that are available for individuals, whether in their phone or a device that they wear on them. There's identification tools that you can obtain for your loved one and register in your county. And these kind of things are going to give you the advantage to access the public alert system to help prevent a serious and perhaps tragic outcome for your loved one. Individuals with any kind of dementia, whether it be Alzheimer's disease or other forms, who wander are always at greater risk of harm due to their behavioral tendencies, due to cognitive decline. They may not be using judgment wisely like they normally would if they could process. They may not or are very unlikely to ask for help. They usually will not turn around if they wander off. And so it really puts them at much greater risk of harm. And we want to ensure that we're aware of this and we put specific things in place to make sure that they are at their safest. People with dementia exhibit specific patterns that increase their vulnerability. I think sometimes these patterns make it harder for them to find their way back safely or to seek assistance. Becoming aware of those things will help you as a caregiver to ensure that this person has a least amount of risk when it comes to wandering and safety issues. Here's some statistics and some patterns of behavior that I want to make sure that you as the caregiver, you as the listener are aware of. And behavior characteristics can set patterns, and there are some distinct statements that we can make about individuals with dementia, depending on what stage they are, but they usually will not turn around or retrace their steps. Those who wander often continue moving in one direction without turning around or retracing their steps. Unlike someone who may realize their loss and attempt to backtrack, individuals with dementia tend to keep going, making it harder for search teams or caregivers to predict where they might end up. This is a fact. This is a true statement and should be something we're conscious of if we find ourselves in this situation. They tend to stray off paths or designed walkways. So rather than staying on a visible path or roadway, people with dementia are likely to wander, say, into wooded areas, fields, or other off-road environments where they become even more disoriented. Their impaired judgment and a sense of direction prevent them from navigating back to familiar landmarks, making rescue efforts much more challenging, especially in rural or less populated areas where they might be spotted by the public. They rarely ask for help or recognize danger. Individuals with dementia typically don't ask for help, even when they encounter people. They may not think to state that they're lost or state that they're looking for something, and so this puts them at risk. This behavior really stems from confusion, fear, or inability to recognize their situation as dangerous. They may also struggle with verbal communication due to the progression of the disease and may not even attempt to seek help or ask questions or assistance. So in cold weather, this becomes especially perilous because the individual may not be aware of the life-threatening condition, such as freezing temperatures or hypothermia, because of their disease. Without the ability to recognize or to seek shelter from harsh weather, they face severe physical risk and frostbite and even death. We want to be sure that if we care for an individual who is at risk during these colder months, number one, that we have some sort of alert system. Whatever is available in your area, become familiar with the Silver Alert program. See if there is another program or tracker in your particular area and region, and they are numerous. Look and see if there's a device. They sell these devices on Amazon, they sell them online, where you could track the person. If the individual has a cell phone, please be sure that the GPS tracker is turned on that cell phone. During the winter months, please be sure at all times that not only are you checking this individual periodically, perhaps you have security on your doors or alarm on your doors, but that they are well dressed in case they were to wander off when you weren't looking, or even during the night, that they are well dressed and their chances of staying warmer are going to be better. We see increased risk during the cold winter weather. We hear stories all across the United States and really throughout the world. When these behavioral tendencies are combined with frigid temperatures, snow or ice, the risk of fatal outcomes is increased dramatically. Let's be sure that we're aware, that we're safe, that our neighbors know the situation of our loved one. Our police department knows the situation of our loved one, that we are checking, that we really talk about and are aware even of some of the signs that individuals may have. Let's talk about some of those tendencies, because I have a saying that an individual doesn't wander until they wander, which is absolutely the case. But wandering is often linked to unmet needs or desires for a purpose. That purpose may not make sense to you. The need might not even make sense to you, but that's generally the link between wandering and wandering type behaviors. It is also kind of a form of nonverbal communication, especially as language skills decline in dementia. So here's some signs that caregivers should look out for. Increased confusion. This may be due to a number of things. It might be due to urinary tract infection, might be due to a change in medication, might just be due to the progression of the dementia. But increased confusion should always come with an alert to watch for wandering. Social withdrawal, that tendency to withdraw from people or situations, that isolation, can also be a trigger for potential wandering. Boredom or physical discomfort, boredom especially, they may tend to innocently wander because they're bored or they're looking for a replacement due to boredom. They're looking for something to do. Insomnia, which is very common in most types of dementia. People who don't sleep well will get up and down. Again, over a period of time without continued rest, this person's confusion and their potential to wander will increase. Restroom needs. If you're out somewhere and they're looking for a restroom, please accompany them. Make sure they get to the restroom and get back to where you are. Please don't leave them unattended in a place that they're not familiar with. I have seen time after time individuals come out of the restroom and instead of making the right, which would take them back to where they needed to go, they made a left and just continued to go. So please be aware of that. Anxiety or emotional distress can trigger wandering. Searching for something or someone, even it's from the past or the present. If they verbalize, I want to go home, or say someone is coming to pick them up, I think these are cues that they're expecting someone. They may tend to wander and go outside looking for that someone to come, even if they're not. And no matter how many times you say they're not coming, they are not going to be able to comprehend what you are saying. They may put their purse and their coat over their arm, looking like they're going somewhere or looking out the window. These are tendencies that you see for a potential for wandering. And then expressing a desire to go somewhere or leave without a clear reason. These are perceptions and could lead to wandering, or wandering may come out of these expressions that the individual is stating. Additionally, wandering can be triggered by new environments. I've seen that oftentimes when someone has moved to a new home or a new community from home. This can trigger wandering. Visiting unfamiliar places, unfamiliar environments. People thrive on familiarity. Very, very important. And in senior living and healthcare in general, when we see wandering or increased confusion, we always test the individual for a urinary tract infection or another type of infection that will increase confusion. So these are common things that we see with dementia that do increase the likelihood of wandering. These are just a few. This is not all inclusive, but these are a few things. And I think that as you caregive for your loved one, you will begin to kind of know a few triggers and changes in behavior. And anytime you see these changes in behavior, you should be alerted to the fact that they could wander. Let's talk a little bit about some tips for caregivers, things that you might try to prevent wandering or at least to redirect wandering. Observe patterns of wandering behavior. If the person does wander, observe a few things, such as time of day or frequency. Is there a particular time of day? So for those of us in the senior living environment, it may be after the wife had visited and the wife went home 30 minutes later. The spouse may be looking for the wife. Very, very common to see that happen. It may happen at the time that they are used to going to work or picking up the children or whatever the case might be. So plan activities to redirect the attention during that time if you can pinpoint a frequency, a time of day, or a particular pattern. Encourage social interaction and engagement through recreational or therapeutic activities like music or art to keep the mind mentally stimulated and keep them engaged and their mind on what's in front of them. Make sure their basic needs are met, such as food, water, restroom access, and that they're consistently met. Install door chimes or alarms to signal when doors are open in your home. Ensure that alerts do not cause unnecessary distress. Generally, in an assisted living memory care setting, we have door alarms so that we're aware anytime that door is open and we can check for the safety of the resident. Limit environmental triggers like loud noises, large crowds. These kinds of things can increase confusion and agitation, which could lead to wandering. So I think that there are a number of things that caregivers can do. We want to really focus on prevention and safety tips to mitigate risks. Again, let me just reiterate, using tracking devices, GPS-enabled wearables to monitor the individual's location, and install door alarms or chimes to alert you when the door is open. Look at a ID, wearable bracelet, or medical identification tag for emergency contact information. Inform neighbors or local community members, including the police department, if your loved one is prone to wandering, so they would be aware. Be aware of high-risk times and places, such as after moving in a new environment or visiting unfamiliar locations. I think it's important that by understanding the possibility of wandering behavior, and especially during the winter season, we can really minimize risk to those that we love and those that we care for. These tips and patterns have been developed over years and years of research, years and years of caregiving for individuals who have dementia. It will pay for you to know some of these things to keep your loved ones safe during the cold winter weather and during seasonal changes. We need to be prepared as caregivers. We need to also kind of be aware of maybe their favorite spots, perhaps things that they've been talking about recently. We need to know how to contact the Silver Alert program. If there's a local program such as Project Lifesaver, how do we contact that? We want to keep handy a list of our local hospitals, our police department, and if they have a cell phone, we want their GPS to be on. So if we stay vigilant and prepare for potential emergencies, especially during the winter months, we are going to have a leg up on providing and safeguarding our loved ones to the best of our ability. I always appreciate you listening to the podcast. Please listen, subscribe, share our podcast. Visit us on Facebook, on YouTube, and on other media outlets. We are open at the podcast to answer your questions. I hope that the content that we provide is helpful to you. Until next time, this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode, visit our website to suggest future topics, and share the podcast with friends and family.